And we're live. Every good true crime story starts with a 911 phone call, and this one is no different. Sure enough, the 911 call we got on the Sarah Boone case was interesting, but we had no idea where it would go from there. Looking back now that she's been locked under the prison after 4 or 5 years, fighting with her attorneys, being forced to go pro se, videos coming out of her being the predominant aggressor against the late George Torres. It's been an amazing case. Tonight, we present to you the lost letter of Sarah Boone, the testimony you did not hear at her sentencing. We're going to make it all relevant, and we're going to make it all make sense for what you need to know for your weekend. All that and more on the Comm Center. Wake up, America. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy. It's a TV show on the internet about two best friends who are called by a small town sheriff to investigate when a shadow figure from his own department keeps checking out the only copy of the Apple Dumpling Gang on DVD every week. I'm joined, as always, by Andrew Baxter. He goes by the fake name Drew Breezy, but he's a authentic cop. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher. I've been doing that in my field for 10 years. I had to swap us so that when I do the graphics, it makes sense. We're live tonight. We don't normally go live. Normally what we do is we put together a nice polished show where you can't see any of our mistakes or errors. Drew edits me down to usually less than 10 minutes per episode. But I'm excited tonight because for everybody that may be new to the channel, we want you to check us out and see what we have. Not perfect, but it's going to be fun. And if you're new to the Sarah Boone case, if you are an outsider to that somehow, you're going to find out everything you need to know about Sarah Boone tonight. And you are going to be surprised by the big old fun basket of crazy, that murder that we're going to make fun of. And we'll pay a little homage to the late George Torres. But first, I got to ask Drew, how you doing tonight, man? It's been a week since I seen you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that my microphone did work. I'm doing great. I think that we've grown in leaps and bounds over the past 7 days, to be honest. I'm very proud and happy for you because you put a lot of heart and soul into our last episode, which was the Sturmer trial.
I deserve a lot of accolades for that, yeah.
The Sturmer, it's an amazing episode. If you haven't checked it out, please go to our page and check out the Linda Sturmer trial video that we did. It's gaining a lot of attention, and I'm very proud of you, John.
These two cases are very similar because Sarah Boone locked up her boyfriend in a suitcase, and Linda Sturmer may have set her husband on fire, and then backed him over with a van.
And backed over him with a van. And these are people that you we have a built-in what do they call that? Not film noir. What's the character like? We have a built-in villain, basically. And they're getting their fair trial or their due process at a trial, but at the same time they're exposing themselves completely when they're at these trials.
So they're opening themselves. Yes.
Yeah. So they're opening themselves up to the scrutiny that we are more than snarkily ready to give them, and they deserve. It's not to take away from the somber meaning behind what the trial is all about. That's the two victims in these respective cases,
right?
So I think we're also planning very soon on covering the Karen Reed trial. We're going to do like a comprehensive what happened in the first trial kind of thing. We stayed away from that a little bit when the first trial hit. It was kind of controversial in the cop world because look, either she's solidly guilty or there's some solidly corrupt cops involved in that Canton, Massachusetts Police Department or the Massachusetts State Police and so it's kind of a controversial case. I really want to do a recap. In fact, that's probably what our next episode is going to be if we can maybe film that.
There's just not enough Thursdays in a week because frankly, with everything that's going on right now, you kind of try to capture the wave of excitement. Well, maybe excitement's the wrong word, the wave of interest. And sometimes it's difficult because we want to talk about those stories that everyone's interested in. But let's go back to the beginning of this case, because we got so much. We just got to keep moving. I want to introduce you, if you don't know, this is Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone was she was accused of locking her boyfriend, the late George Torres, who we are in no way here to mock tonight. We are here to, in the way that a podcast can, which I'm not a big fan of this, of saying that a podcast honors anybody, because I don't think the George Torres family, and I don't think George Torres cares anything about what we're doing, and I don't think that we could possibly pay proper homage to him. But I want to just keep in mind that we're not here making fun of him, but Sarah Boone is a ridiculous person, and we're going to make fun of her. But Every good true crime case starts with a 911 phone call, so let's go ahead and go to that first.
911, what is the location of your emergency? 4748 France Court, apartment 3.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send the line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
Straight out of the gate.
Exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in his case and we were playing. And like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know.
So right from the start, what she would eventually come to rely on years and years later, after stalls and her trials and her many attorneys, that she would eventually come to rely upon battered spouse syndrome. But because from the start, from her very first 911 phone call, from when this case first entered the criminal justice system, she said, George and I were having a good day. We were playing a game. She was not able to rely on that. She could not say she was in fear for her life. The experts weren't convinced.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Like he has like blood coming out of his mouth, and I don't know if like he had like an aneurysm or what happened.
Right, okay, all right, okay. Listen, we're getting help out there too. All right, okay. Okay,
Right now?
Okay, man, listen, we're on our way out there already. Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Okay, so he was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
Is he awake at all? Is he conscious at all?
No, he's purple.
Is he breathing?
No.
All right.
This is where the dispatcher straps in for CPR. It's kind of a difficult undertaking. I had to do it today. It's always hard when that call comes in. But the dispatcher's amazed, Drew. He's never taken a phone call for someone dead in his suitcase before. So even though he's heard it a couple times, he's still very surprised by what he's heard.
I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
All right.
I tried giving him CPR.
Yeah, okay.
But nothing happened. He's purple.
Are you right by him now?
Yes.
Ma'am, listen. Is he cold and stiff?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's not necessarily cold, but he's stiff. And he's purple.
Okay. All right, listen to me. Listen to me. I want you to lay him flat on his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Removing the pillows. Okay.
Yes, I did.
All right. Okay.
He's stiff and purple.
Right. Okay. Listen. Okay, man. That's fine. We're still going to do compressions on him. Okay. All right. Place the heel of your hand on his breastbone, right in the center of the chest, right between the nipples.
Yes.
Put your other hand on top of that hand.
Baby, I'm telling you. Just by looking at him, you can tell.
Okay. And?
Please. Okay, he just gurgled. Open. Come in. Can I stop hugging now?
Let them take over for you, okay?
When was the last time anybody saw him? Last night. We were playing hide and seek. He hit the suitcase. Okay. But unfortunately, he's been down too long. There's nothing we can do for him.
So the dispatcher tries to save him. We always try to give CPR. We always take steps to intervene to save lives. But when George Torres has been locked in a suitcase for something like 12 hours, I mean, this is at like noon, Drew. He's been in there forever. He's quite completely gone. And the first responders who have seen people who have passed away, they walk in and they know right away there's no saving George Torres.
Yeah, I mean, she took one look at him and she knew. And you know, she asked general questions like, "Hey, how long's he been down?" You know, that kind of thing. But she's you can hear the panic in her voice. Look, we have a whole separate channel. If you don't know about this, it's called Sarah's Suitcase, and we do we all of our Sarah Boone content has moved over to Sarah's Suitcase. Essentially, we've got one or two things left on this channel, and especially this thing that we're doing live right now, which will eventually make it over to at Sarah's Suitcase on YouTube. But it's chronological. It's a nice series for you. And we we do all the breakdowns that we did in the past, and there are people that are commenting because they're not necessarily just catching up, but they were trial watchers or they were following the case, and they're digging our content. They like our content. They like the way that we're presenting it, so to speak. They don't realize that we've already, done all these episodes, but
they should not be stealing from us. It is our job to do that from Law and Crime.
Right. But, I'm getting little tidbits here and there of people that were just hyper focusing on the Sarah Boone trial during the trial. And, like I got a comment today that, like, if he started gurgling, there was no way. If you remember in that 911 call, we didn't play it in this clip, but she said that she had done CPR before she called 911 or something.
She did. She also called her ex-husband before she called 911.
Right. And then at trial, we find out she called her ex-husband at midnight that night. So she wasn't asleep yet. But so, we're finding little tidbits here and there, and as we come across them, I'll point them out. Like, when she said she was stabbed, there's a little, no pun intended, twist to that. But
there's a little
keep
twist.
going.
And when they would do the autopsy, they would find that he had some contusions and some scratches, like maybe the bag got tossed down the stairs a few times. But we got to keep moving. I'm going to go straight to the first body cam from patrol.
Records later reveal Boone and Torres were painting pictures and completing a puzzle while sharing wine when they decided to play a game of hide and seek. Boone would later tell police once they responded to the scene, she assumed Torres would be able to get out. So instead, she went to bed, later finding him the next morning lifeless, still zipped up inside the suitcase.
I fell asleep.
Okay.
Forgetting that he was in the
you guys
suitcase.
were playing the hide and go
Yes.
seek. And at some point you put him in the suitcase?
No, he got in the suitcase. So he thought it would be funny to be put in the suitcase. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to joke with you and I'll zip you up and make him, squirm a little bit, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But then I fell asleep. Mm-hmm. I fell asleep.
Where was the suitcase?
Right where it is.
Right down there?
Yes.
You zipped him in there?
Yes.
Thought he would be funny, a little
joke.
It
was. We both were laughing about it. Okay. And then I fell asleep.
Where did you fall asleep at?
Upstairs.
In your bedroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally forgetting that he was in the suitcase still.
Okay. And then you came back downstairs?
This morning, or this afternoon, yes, when I got up.
What time?
12:30-ish. I was awake, but I totally forgot that he was in the suitcase.
So she tries to make it seem like she's been traumatized by what was otherwise a fun evening of puzzles, wine, and hide and go seek when he was zipped up and she was supposed to be looking, I guess, which never made sense true. If you know the rules of hide and go seek, you just the tapestry quickly unravels. But there she's giving just the facts to patrol, and they would eventually seize her cell phone, which is sort of the next step in the case, because for all her protestations of innocence and not being a murderer, the most damning thing was the act itself, which she recorded for the jury to see. And we won't get to this video tonight because we just have too much to do. But on day 5 of her trial, they showed that Sarah Boone had a long history of berating George Torres, humiliating him on camera. I don't know. What would you say? Demasculating him? Just abusing him.
I think that's probably the number one comment we get over on Sarah's Suitcase. Like that she was the abuser. There's no question. And on top of that, like in their mind, in the viewer's mind, they always kind of take a shot at me because I always kind of give a little grace that maybe she was abused at some point. And they don't like that for some reason. But I just want to remain objective and truthful. But the thing is, they also say that like every video that they show, she's the one recording it, and she's claiming that she's doing it for like a Nicole Brown Simpson kind of like, to document. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's not. It's always her being the aggressor. It's always her on the offensive. And or like if he's just smash hammered drunk, he's not beating her up smash hammered drunk. He's stumbling down the stairs, smash hammer.
He's
drunk,
he's trying to cope drunk. He's sad drunk.
Yeah.
He's trying to numb his wounds drunk. At one point, he's kind of out in the hallway, and she comes out and yells at him for being disruptive and noisy, and it's her yelling the entire time. And I'll never forget this. This probably should have been included, but it was just a time thing. But he walks down the stairs to go sleep on the couch, not next to her in bed, and he says, "I love you, Sarah," and she says, "And I don't love you. And I don't like you, and I don't want you." And you can just see it, that even after all he's been through, it absolutely just crushes him.
Yeah.
Like a kicked puppy. He goes downstairs. On a prior occasion, he also got arrested. The cops come in, and he's just sitting there, and he goes, his attitude is, take me to jail. And they, when police officers interview domestic violence suspects, they separate them. They get the stories. And he just said, it's whatever Sarah says, because he doesn't want to have to retract it later. There was some other incident where, and she was recording this, but she said, what are you going to say on the stand in front of the judge? And he's just like, it's all my fault. Sarah's a beautiful person, a wonderful person. She's got blind and deaf dogs. She's wonderful. And he doesn't want to have to do that later. So he falls on the sword right away, saying whatever Sarah says it was is what happened. And that's how strong her aggression was, where she dominated his personality, even to say nothing about how physically she probably dominated him. And he was so small, he fit in a suitcase.
I know, he was a slight fella. This is what Sarah's suitcase looks like on YouTube. By the way, we have some fire thumbnails from help from a professional, but it's at Sarah's Suitcase, the Sarah Boone case, step by step, and we've taken it. We've literally put it in order, like episode 1, episode 2, and this will be, I think, episode 11. We're releasing episode 10 tomorrow afternoon, which was our first, like Paul's letter to the Corinthians. That was like Sarah's letter to Judge Kraynic, Act 1.
Yeah. And we'll, for those of you just joining us, we're going to get to the unspoken letter of what she was going to say when she was on the stand. But so let's go back to the case. So she had this 911 call. Patrol shows up. If you remember, Drew, all she cared about was getting inside so that she could have some root beer or some Dr. Pepper or something. She was very thirsty. She doesn't care that her boyfriend's dead. She cares about how traumatic it is for her and how thirsty she is. But they seized her cell phone, and this is what detectives would be looking at next. And I warn you that this is a man being tortured to death. So if you have kids who are old enough to understand, maybe don't have them watch this, because it is sad and terrible, but it's the truth.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Oof.
Awful. Callous.
Sarah. I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do, and you
That actually went on for a while. She said that's what happens when you cheat on me, when you choke on me. She's got some grievances, but now she has George Torres where she's always wanted him. He's a captive audience for her grievances, and she's going to let him know exactly everything that she thinks about him. She go on later to say that he had access to weapons, that she was afraid of leaving the house. Right now, if she wants to get out of an abusive relationship, and we can get into, how women, try to leave 7 times before they successfully break the cycle of domestic violence to get away. But if she's in imminent danger right now, and this is important because this is what the jury had to consider, is that she can get out of that house right now. She can walk away. George Torres is powerless to save himself and to stop her. So whatever danger he would pose for being angry about being locked in the suitcase, she could leave. She could call a police officer to the scene. It's called a property exchange where they come in and keep the peace while we unpack everything, but
no pun intended.
No pun intended. But this is the moment of depravity, of indifference, depraved indifference, when she decides that she's going to go to bed. And I am thoroughly convinced in my mind that maybe she didn't necessarily have the intent to kill him. Maybe she wasn't smart enough or sober enough to think it would kill him, but she wanted him to suffer. She thought that he would spend the night in the suitcase and that she could get some revenge that way. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't even know if she was cognizant of the fact that he was going to spend the night in the suitcase. I mean, I do like that Joni pointed out that carpet itself is a crime in and of itself. But I think that she was just so blackout drunk, just so blasted that and from what what has come out in a lot of these comments on the other channel is that that's very common for her. That was her MO. That was apparently the split with her first husband, that she was kind of abusive to him and just completely blackout drunk all the time. And I get that. I mean, I understand it. You all know how I started out life and where I am now. But so I don't know if any of it was intentional, in the sense that she may have just gone to bed thinking nothing, like dummies locked in a suitcase, but I'm tired, I'm going to sleep, and not thinking that it would kill him. Now, and then waking up with that regret in the morning. The difference being, though, would be like, don't you think she should have been mortified to find what she found? Like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, I made a horrible mistake here. But that's not in her nature, it seems. It seems, John, that she just tried to manipulate her way out of it.
Admitting at any point what she did wrong was something that was completely beyond her. Even when it came time to throw herself on the mercy of the court, as we'll get into tonight in unprecedented detail, she could not do anything but air her grievances for other people. So they've taken her cell phone. Detectives, of course, have looked through it. They've discovered that video, and they're going to call Sarah down to the station, as one does, Drew, I guess under the promise of returning her cell phone.
Yeah, I think I think it was partially a conversation of returning her cell phone to her, because I think she was actually hounding them to return the cell phone.
Yeah.
And then there was a matter of like, the story doesn't match and we want to talk to you. So if you're going to come down here willingly, then let's sit and talk about it in a recorded environment.
Drew actually teaches a 39-hour course on interviews and interrogations. We did a whole episode that just broke down the interrogation. So, Drew, I'm going to throw up I taught a 41-hour course. I'm going to throw up this video on the screen. It's the interrogation. It's a little bit longer than the ones you just saw, but it's still a truncated version. And I want you to control it. I want you to give the audience your benefit of your 29 years. I also worked for 30 years as a detective. I want you to give them, you always quit, just one shot. Of your 29 years.
I just want to make the point that I'm able to do that in 39 hours. Like, it takes you 41.
That's true. Yeah, you're a little bit faster than me. You got it at 30 years. You got it a 30-year career, in 29 years. But what I look at it as, you saved a little bit something so that you could do this podcast. But I'm going to throw on this interview and interrogation. They've got her in there. I bring this up because she mentions the detectives on the letter that she was going to read on the stand. She mentions them specifically. So I want you to get a look at the detectives, and she mentions some of their behavior specifically in her grievances. But Drew, I'm going to throw it up on the screen, and you take control, sir.
Also in the video, you can't see any holes. There's nowhere in that where the zipper separates and you can see a hole. If there's a hole, he's pushing on it, begging you to get out. We should probably see that hole.
He essentially would have been able to get out.
Yeah.
Alcohol. Based off what you're telling us, he should have been able to get out.
Okay.
But the video shows him attempting to get out, begging to get out, and he can't. So that's just what we're trying to figure out. I don't know if maybe you had too much to drink, you zipped it up all the way, and then,
I did not zip it up all the way.
All right, so that's kind of something known as like the Golden Bridge, or they're giving her an out. Like, it's the perfect out. Like, sometimes it's hard to confess to something like this. And they know the answer to a lot of these questions because they've already viewed the video. But, with the Golden Bridge, they're kind of saying, well, I mean, maybe you just zipped up both sides of it and went up to bed. And they're just hoping, like, not necessarily that she bites, but that she, agrees. And then it makes it a little bit easier. Okay, now you've given a crumb here. And it's not like it's time to pounce on her. It's that you've given her the out. Like, you've kind of given her a reason to justify what happened. Like, look, you were drunk. You didn't mean to do this. I don't think you would ever do this. You seem like a good person, and you're having that conversation with them. And then next thing you know, she's like, look, I zipped it up and I went to sleep. I don't know what happened from there. Okay, well, now we have an admission. So there's a difference between an admission and a confession. An admission is like talking about your involvement or placing yourself in a scene, whereas a confession is more of like confessing to the crime. The confession is, it's right in the title, confession.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a truthful statement of facts. So I don't really think she bit. She wasn't following along with the plan because she was ardent in being the smartest person in the room. And that usually works to everyone's advantage when you're a cop, because that's not the case. Like, we've heard it all. You can tell us every lie possible, and we have a way around it. And sometimes you're not lying. Like, I think, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, but so let's continue on.
Okay, well, I did not zip it up all the way.
That there is something to that, by the way. I did not zip it up all the way. It's all in her rhythm and pentameter. Like, if she were remorseful and like trying to convince the detective, it would be more of a like, oh my God, I swear to God, I don't remember zipping it up all the way. I don't think I zipped it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't zip it up all the way.
She should just be horrified that he's dead and she's having to watch it.
Yes.
This is horrific, okay? Horrific. It is terrible.
Yeah,
horrific. I don't think I'll ever be right because of this. Ever be right. I didn't mean to leave him there. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
You got up and walked away. How is that not intentionally leaving him there?
Because
at this point in the interrogation, they are showing her what she didn't realize that they had, which was videos pulled directly from her cell phone that we just saw, where she was holding the cell phone up saying, "Stupid, that's my name, don't wear it out." And you can hear him in the background, Sarah, I can't breathe, Sarah. And the thing is, Sarah at one point in the interrogation is like, "Can you shut that off?" Like, I get why she's saying that, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, I want to see what you're saying. Like, I want to see what the horror is.
Right.
I'm looking at
Or her reaction probably would not be rage and anger. It would probably be just.
I think you make a really good point. She wants to know what they've got against her, and I say that because it would be a recurring theme. As I was going through the letter, and we know this already just from what we know about Sarah Boone, but she was constantly demanding her discovery, as if the trial that she was going to was her case against the state. She even will make specific mention of that. We'll get into that later, but she always wanted her discovery. Like, she wanted to know what the case was against her. And I always wanted to be like, so we dump out the suitcase in front of you in the video. And what are you going to do with that, Sarah? You're going to like dig through it? Like, now that you have your discovery, you're like a dog that's running after a truck. What are you going to do with it if you catch it? She always wanted her discovery, and it became this grievance that she wanted to know the case against her. But I think here she really just does want to know how bad it is for her.
These letters are a gold mine of it's just like a peek into somebody's head, which I think is the more alluring part of the Sarah Boone saga. It's what's giving her cult status. Stick around. We're going to get to some of these letters in a little bit. I want you to hear how John has kind of laid them out. I want to know in the comments, though, are we off base here? I mean, like, we have an actual, without putting her business on the streets, domestic violence survivor in the chats, and she's like, look, this is 100%. Sarah's the abuser in this situation. Are we off base? Are we on the mark? I mean, like, I don't necessarily want to debate the interrogation. I'm more than willing to talk about it, but
if you want to equivocate the issue and say that they're at least both guilty, leave a comment in the chats below. Yeah. We respond to all of them.
That's exactly right. That's what I was trying to say.
The whole knowing that it's there, he'll get out no harm. Because you don't.
And then he doesn't, but you don't go check on him. You say you're up for 30 minutes and he doesn't come up. You don't go down and check on him?
I'm in the bed. You even moved. And you moved.
Like, I'm so sorry you were in the bed. Like, well, he died. And you know what? I think indignance and defiance are like two emotions I would not be. It would send up the most red flags with me as the interrogator. Like, I think that, you would see some form of remorse, or you would even see fear, or no, she's on the offensive on all of these. Like, she's not really answering questions. She's like posing more questions than she's answering. Like,
I think she wants to put herself on their side, saying, "Hey, this terrible thing happened, and I'm a victim too."
Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Admit to moving the suitcase over, so
You roll it.
You roll it out. Like, it's not like
I didn't want it to be like that.
Again, like the male detective is raising his voice. The female detective really isn't. She's, by the way, I think pregnant at the time, has a horrible cold, and is about over Sarah Boone's shit. So she is pretty short-tempered, and I talked about that in our interrogation episode, that like maybe she was a little bit short-tempered, or maybe it was I detected a little inexperience even. But I will tell you this: by the time Chelsea Koepsel, who is the homicide detective that's interviewing her, by the time she got on the stand, she was 100% a homicide detective. She was 100% ready. She was 100% truthful, objective, and honest. And she killed it. No pun intended, she tore that case apart. She did an amazing job on the stand. So, I like, maybe I didn't give her enough grace, and who am I? I was never in homicide. Like, I just taught interviews and interrogations, but and I've had my share of big interviews, but I was not necessarily overly critical, I don't think, but I think that there were some things that those detectives were doing that.
Well, at one point their computer dies, and the detective in the pink shirt leaves at one point. So like, there's minor stuff, but
checking the phone and stuff like that. Like, Sarah ended up getting life in prison. So,
yeah, did a good job. Yeah. But
what I'm saying is, like, do you not think that maybe you should put your cell phone away? And believe me, I've been in these cases. I've been in these interviews where stuff is unfolding very quickly, and people are texting you with little clues and all this other stuff. But look, dude, this woman got life in prison, so obviously the gravity of the situation was pretty heavy. I don't know that they knew that then, but put your cell phone away. Like, this is not the time to check your texts or whatever. Like, your bosses should know or should understand that if they need to, like, tap on the door or whatever, whatever.
It would come to drive her nuts later. Go ahead.
you're telling us, he should have been able to get out.
Get out, no problem. Because you don't.
And then he doesn't, but you don't go check on him.
Like,
I didn't want it to be like that. Don't.
You didn't want him to be upside down? How do you even get upside down?
Right. You guys are killing me right now. I promise you, on my son's life, it was not intentional. I promise you, on Lucas's life, it was not intentional.
I don't know you. I can't say I know anything about you. I don't know what would be a true statement, what would not. I mean, you're promising on your son's life, that's fine.
Doesn't mean anything to me.
Sorry.
That's how much it, look, that's how much it means.
Okay.
I hope you take that to heart.
You know, she said, "You guys are killing me right now." It's just an insensitive and horrible thing to say. And she keeps swearing on her son's life as if that's supposed to mean anything. Drew, did you find that when people would start swearing on things, swear in the Bible, hope to God, swear on my mother's life, they were usually lying?
Yeah, this is desperation at that point. Like, invoking religion also is kind of tough. It's not going to, there isn't one singular thing that's going to lend to somebody's guilt. Like, you have to take them in clusters. Like, it's not just the body language, and it's not just what she's saying, or, because anybody can make a mistake in their answers, or anybody could have personality conflicts with the people they're dealing with also. So, I think that when you start invoking, like, I swear to God on my son's life, I see that as the golden bridge, though. When, like, look, Sarah, I appreciate that you would offer your son's life, since George's life is no longer on the table. But I like, if it was a mistake, we need to know exactly how the mistake took place, because what you're saying is not making sense, and it's not lending to it being a mistake. So, like, she opened the door, and look, this is so easy to throw these little jibs and jabs out like 4 or 5 years later when the lights are low and it's just me and John on the internet. But I think, in instances like that, the door was open. They could have walked through there.
What wasn't in that clip that she said so many times? And if you go back and watch her OG video on that, she says, "I intentionally didn't do it," which is just such an odd turn of phrase. It has the double negative in it. The double negatives kind of keep coming up. Even Linda Sturmer had that too, where she's, "I don't think I ever did not love my husband."
Did not love him.
It's like they have to consider it. They have to. They're saying what they need to say, but they're also couching. It's like it's so untrue that they can't just say, "Yes, I love him," or "No, I didn't lock him in a suitcase." But so what would happen is we would approach the COVID years and things would kind of slow down there in Florida. And Sarah did not get bond because she's being tried with second-degree murder, and she's not happy that she's not out on bond. But she starts having drama with her lawyer. She wants to be in the driver's seat when all her lawyers come in. We're going to talk a lot about her lawyers when we go through the final letter. And we'll start here, where we talk about how her lawyers weren't getting along with her and asking to withdraw one by one. And these are court-appointed attorneys. So I want to say she will eventually get to the point where she goes, "I don't appreciate these unprofessional attorneys and how much money they took." It's like they were forced to do this. This was bad for their practices to do this. They were taking time away from other paying clients and probably other more deserving indigent clients, other defendants who deserve a good defense, when you're dead to rights as soon as you recorded him doing this and as soon as you said you guys were playing a game. But I'll throw it on the screen. Here we go.
Boone's trial, she has gone through several court-appointed lawyers who have all asked to remove themselves from her case, and lawyer number 8 is seemingly no different. On June 11th, Boone's attorney Patricia Cashman filed a motion to withdraw, citing irreconcilable differences. But about 4
That's something. Irreconcilable differences are reasons for a divorce. So for an attorney to leave a defendant, a client, over irreconcilable differences, the verbiage is just classic.
days prior to Cashman filing that motion, Boone herself, in a move that she's no stranger to, would write a nearly 60-page letter to the judge expressing her frustration with Cashman. On page 1 of the 58-page letter, Boone wrote down several instances of her not getting access to documents and evidence. Some include, "Why can't I use my constitutional rights? Am I the only one who cares about the ongoing violations? Why can't I have bond? Why can't I have all my medical records? Why can't I have all my digital evidence and discovery? Why can't I have all my paperwork, notes, letters, pictures, everything of mine returned by former attorneys? Why can't I speak to my investigator?"
By the way, you can't have your evidence because you're literally in Orange County lockup. They're not going to let you keep evidence there. She thinks it's evidence of her exoneration is the thing, but it's all the evidence that's going to be used to convict her. And it's all being, obviously, for chain of custody issues and preservation of evidence issues. It's in the evidence locker. It's not with you.
This is a reminder. It reminds me of the, sometimes I hate the term Karen, but there are times when I love the term Karen. But this is like a Karen who, just, it could never happen to them. You know what I mean? Like, she's more than willing to comment on everybody else and talk about everybody else. But when the shoe's on the other foot and it happens to them, they're like, "This is outrageous." Like, there's a video that's resurfaced, that's going around again, which is the same thing as resurfacing, I guess. But where a mother shows up at a traffic stop, and she's like, "No, the cop is saying, like, these are two 19 and 20-year-old kids. Like, they don't need your representation here." And she's like, "I am here representing them. I am a concerned citizen." And he's like, "Well, are you an attorney?" And she's like, "No, I am one of their mothers," and blah, blah, blah. "Well, they're adults. They can do whatever they want. Yes, but I am a concerned citizen, and I demand your supervisor." Like, come on, man. they can make their own decisions. They got themselves in trouble. And in fact, they're sinking in their passenger and driver's seat right now because they're embarrassed that you're here. So it's kind of like, yes, I back the blue, I support the blue until we pull your daughter over, and then the next thing you know, you're showing up at the traffic stop representing them, and that you think you need to pull out your camera and record everything, and you know what I mean? This is the same thing that Sarah's kind of doing. She's just like once it happens to her, it's like, how dare you take my civil rights? I think you're completely right that she thinks this is her case against the state as opposed to the case of the state against her.
I just want to let you know that when you're out there and you're on a traffic stop with someone, Drew, all those years, you never knew all the times when they were texting their moms and their moms were calling into the Comm center. Why is police out with my son? Because that happens all the time.
Yeah, I believe that.
They're like, is your son a juvenile? No, he's 25. Have a good day.
Right? No,
I don't have to talk to you about this at all. I don't owe you anything. So
no, he's in medical school. Like he can handle himself on a traffic stop, lady.
I'll never forget the time the guy called in to report child abuse, that his father was abusing him, and it was heartbreaking. Except he was 35, so it just doesn't count sometimes.
And it was mental abuse.
It was mental. He was locked outside in his underwear.
Why can't I have any of my witness list? Why can't I be treated fairly, lawfully, and be protected by the justice system? Then Boone writes about her attorney, adding another list of instances where she seemingly believes her lawyer isn't doing enough. Boone writing, why can't my attorney give me an honest answer? Why can't my attorney show me everything she says she has and finished reviewing for my case, but withholds from me after I repeatedly ask for and about? Why can't my attorney grant me access to anything I ask her for in and about my case? Why can't my attorney, like the detectives in my case, stop putting words in my mouth? Why can't my attorney tell me what's going on in my case? It's been well over 100 days she has been my attorney, and I still don't know, ongoing 5 years. By page 5, Boone asked the judge, I very much want to advance to the next level after ongoing 5 years now. A genuine concern limit has been reached. Why am I still not being included in my case? How much more of my care and self is being added hourly, especially after this letter gets loose to the internet, increasing the mass infliction and destruction of my homes to have a fair trial?
That's always the judge's favorite, I'm sure. Like, go ahead and it was always my favorite as a police administrator. I could easily make this phone call to Channel 8. Yes, you could. Please, I invite you to do that.
I think her attitude is the opposite, though. I think that she, we'll cover this a little bit too, but I think she saw how sensational it was and how she was making the news, and she was making social media channels. I mean, we have a whole channel based off of her existence, right? She saw us profiting off of that, the rich, soulless, people who have blood on our keyboards for what we're doing, just reporting the fact that she committed a crime. We internet tycoons, we don't have our own lives, so we're going to focus on her. So, she was just amazing. She, as you see there at the bottom of the letter, she talks about how everyone's drinking the punch about her guilt.
Anything fair, my side foremost, and wondering how if my attorney drank the punch like everyone else. Boone even admitted to walking out of meetings with her attorney due to what Boone called unwarranted, uninformative, unprofessional, snotty attitude and her untruthful answers to her questions.
You know what's amazing about this is that she views everyone else as being to blame. But at no point does she stop and examine, like, the only reason these proceedings are going on is because my boyfriend George is dead.
Yeah.
She doesn't have even the basic level of insight or self-awareness to understand the genesis of her own dilemma. She does not realize what caused all this to happen. She thinks that her lawyers hate her, and the judge hates her, and the judge is biased, and the cops are dirty, and the media is out to get her. You would almost call it like a cocktail of various neuroses. She's got the, narcissism, and she's got the almost paranoia about how everyone's out to get her and how she's blameless in all of this. And just as we continue to keep going, pay attention. She wants all the facts and all the evidence in her case. She honestly believes that this is her case, and that the detectives, by not going to work for her or seeing her interest, she doesn't understand that in a way, the system, I won't call it stacked against you because that's unfair, but it's like there's a prosecution side and there's a defense side. You're supposed to be contributing your defense, which for Sarah's case could just mean getting out of the way. But she always mentions, getting to the most favorable outcome. She feels like if anyone would just listen to her, the judges, the police, anyone else, the jury, that it could only have one favorable outcome, which would be her own acquittal. It was a mess for her lawyers. Like I said, I felt very bad. Eventually, she had another lawyer come in from out of state after she was forced to go pro se. One of the things that interests me, I took a little con law in college. Sixth Amendment says you have a right to counsel. You have a right to an attorney. We have that's in your Miranda rights. Even the most basic person who just watches Law and Order knows that when Lenny slaps the cuffs on you, you got the right to an attorney. If you don't have one will be provided for you. She got to the point where she voided her own constitutional rights to an attorney because it was slowing the trial so much. Literally, the state of Florida could not get on with its business because she was exploiting the process of getting rid of her own attorneys. The case could not move forward. And we were waiting with bated breath here at the Comm Center for the pro se trial to proceed, where she would be getting up, walking in the well, interviewing cops, interviewing herself, saying incriminating things as testimony while examining and cross-examining people. Alas, it never came to pass because James Owen, an attorney, stepped in and kept it from being an absolute farce, which is a good thing because that means all of the appeals are going to be denied. But here's one of her attorneys bowing out early, and you won't believe when he talks about the abusive behavior that he endured. And I believe that this is also indicative of Sarah. I almost wish the jury had seen this because you can see the way that she treats people. She doesn't respect people that she thinks are dumber or lesser than herself. People like George Torres or people like this attorney.
So the letters that have been coming to Your Honor, the derogatory berating of my services in this case, I can't effectively represent her. She doesn't trust me. She calls me a dud, I think, a buffoon, on and on and on and on. And no one should have to endure that type of derogatory comments and expect to effectively represent someone, especially in a murder case.
But one thing I want to caution you about, if this becomes a problem on another court-appointed attorney, I'm going to look more closely at what the alleged disputes are. You have a right to a court-appointed lawyer. There are certain decisions a defendant gets to make in the defense of their case that are absolutely theirs, such as whether they go to trial or not, such as whether they testify or not. But there are many decisions in a case that a lawyer gets to make. And while you certainly have a right to consult with your lawyer and discuss with your lawyer, they don't automatically just do whatever you say. They use their professional judgment and experience and look at the evidence, look at the law, and do the best they can.
So that was Judge Wooten. He would eventually step down and he would be replaced on the case by Judge Michael Kraynic. We're going to go ahead and play the video from her sentencing, where after it was determined that she was guilty, basically the jury sat for 90 minutes, just long enough to have dinner, eat a pizza, and they came back. And it was a Friday night, and they didn't want to miss Survivor, so they just said that she was guilty, and there was really no. It was the briefest of all the appearances that Sarah ever had in court, but the jury spent very little time deliberating it. Like I said, 90 minutes, and an hour of that was just having dinner. But before we get into the sentencing video where Sarah gets up on the stand and lists all her grievances, I just want to remind you guys, if you like what you're seeing, you can get more from the Comm Center. Make sure you check out all of our videos. Hit like, hit subscribe. Make sure you touch that notification bell so you can juice our algorithm a little bit. Make sure you leave in a comment below. If you have anything to say about Sarah Boone, at this point, Drew and I are pretty much experts. Like, we've been covering this case for years now. We have our own channel. And if you have something interesting to say, like I said, leave it in the comments below. We love when we get comments. We want to hear what you think, and we always answer all of our comments. So please leave a comment below. We'd appreciate it. It would juice our algorithm. And tell your friends, too, so that everyone's watching the Comm Center. But let's watch this video, which, by the way, was originally like 27 minutes long. I have reduced it down to a comfortable 3 minutes. The right to speak at your sentencing is a English common law tradition. You know, typically before the guilty person is hanged, they get to say something, or in this case, life in prison. But what the person gets to say I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of case law on that, Drew. But she had a lot to say, as she's about to tell you the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. And we're going to reveal what's under the water, the rest of that iceberg tonight in just a minute. But I wanted to refresh your memory on what is some of the things she says on the stand, because I'm going to call back to it as I read through the portions of the letter that she says out loud. So this is Sarah. In her own words, she always wanted to be heard. I believe she even took the stand in this case, didn't she? She even told the jury.
Yes.
But she always wanted to be heard. This is her in her own words.
I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I didn't really know how to put it on paper. This is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. Kentu Sukuroi is a kind of
All right, get on
George
with it.
Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. It doesn't matter, even though now different. Above all, excuses. This is forgiven. I forgive George for being me, senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture.
Get on with it.
I also forgive the Torres family. His mother and father by the organized crime that is social media, which condemns me in a court of global public opinion. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, making and taking blood money from my and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes.
Not George's.
In the end, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and that I never stopped loving him. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. Forgive me, George.
For everything you've done to me.
Forgive me, Torres family.
For everything you've done to me. You.
I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration, for all of us to move forward.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
My apology is profuse and ceaseless.
I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's what.
In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this. Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke oppressors, defend the fatherless.
Oh, George's fatherless child.
All-encompassing, protect the abused.
Nice.
Ms. Boone, is that the end of your written statement?
Yes.
Now, gathering your thoughts, did you want to make an oral statement?
I do.
Would you do that now?
Yes, please. My statement, my verbal statement is primarily to the Torres family, to the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am, and still no one knows me.
That's enough of that. To be honest, I couldn't stand it anymore, Drew.
Yeah.
Her getting on the stand, and she gets on this long tirade of all the people that she forgives, and it's all very backhanded. This is not real forgiveness. This is her way of saying, I forgive you for all the wrongs you've done for me. Why don't you do me a solid and just forgive me one murder? Because of all the charges that I'm about to list off of everything that you all have done wrong, I'm going to forgive you. So this is it. This is the moment where I'm going to read through the entire statement. I think a final letter to the judge in which she chastises the judge, but then everything else that her lawyer, James Owens, quite smartly and quite ethically refused to let her read on the stand, because I'm telling you, some of this stuff is so turbulent, acidic. It's defamation in its own right. If any of these attorneys wanted to ruin their own lives by taking her back to court for defamation, there'd be room for this, because she makes some pretty scurrilous and excoriating charges. Drew, I'm going to throw on the screen the PDF of it. I don't know. We didn't rehearse this. I don't know if you want to try to scroll through as I go, just for some authenticity. I already transcribed it into something that I could read, because here she's just been sentenced, and you can see that her handwriting it just is not as good. She's writing angry. It's like she's driving angry, and she's crashing into things. So we're going to start with the letter. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you in my best Sarah Boone voice. I thought about giving this to AI, but I can give it the human touch. I want to say, first of all, that she has more run-on sentences than Donald Trump. So I'm going to do the best I can here. I am in closing, please, my complete statement to you and the world as I partially read my sentencing hearing. By my reserving particular parts of my very true and meaningful statements, I was hoping to have been graced with your forgiveness, understanding, and consideration in any level or degree. For me, unfortunately, and regardless of whom I had to speak on my behalf or the number of, your ignorant mind was already made up. Calling the judge ignorant, not a smart play. Again, I think this isn't a letter after the fact. So this is her putting him on blast after she's already been sentenced. By your clear error and full-blown unfair bias against me since your involvement in my crucible case. She describes it as a crucible case, as though what she was going through was something dangerous and heroic, and it made her brave for going through that, rather than just really being subjected for some measure of accountability for the crime she committed. I have been unsuccessful in receiving anything from you as a supposed fair and neutral judge, except for your wish that I spend the rest of my life in prison. Guys, I think a fair and neutral judge would want her to spend the rest of her life in prison. Please know and always remember, Mr. Kraynic, I forgive you. Still and sincerely. I always hate her little stilted little thing. Still and sincerely, ever and always. She says things like that. Please understand also, Judge, according to Cicero. Now, this is classic Sarah Boone, where she's, Sarah lives in a trailer park, and she's in here with these scholarly men who've all been to legal school, and they wear their fine robes, and they launder their clothes every day, and they dab Grey Poupon off of their lips with cloth napkins. These are proper men, but she wants to show that she can hang in with them. So she's going to quote Cicero of all things. She's like, judges read lots of Cicero, so this is going to definitely
they must.
This is from Cicero. So please understand, according to Cicero, quote, a judge is never to lose the sight that he is simply a man and that he cannot exceed the power given to him by his commission, that not only power but public confidence has been given to him, that he ought always very seriously to attend not to his wishes, but to the requisitions of law, of justice, and religion. This speech was called Procluentio. I don't know. Sorry, guys. My Roman's not very good. But this is ridiculous here because she's charging that basically the judge made up his mind, didn't like her, and didn't follow the law. When I believe if you watch Judge Kraynic, I don't even get to vote for judges down there, Drew. I don't know if you're close enough to, I don't know, the judicial circuits, but this is the guy I would vote for. Like, I'm just impressed by him. He seems like a good judge to me.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, I am excited in my appeal, which speaks for itself. My case law as well, in which I am extremely proud to have achieved and will continue doing so now that I am no longer in your corrupt court and free from your malevolent judicial grip. Again, Sarah is using the thesaurus to great effect here. Sarah Boone versus State of Florida. She literally just wrote what the name of the case will be so that he knows when he sees it that that's what that is. I also have added to my statement as a result of your blindness and impartiality. I thought you wanted a judge to be impartial, Sarah. I think you used the wrong word there. Foremost, you disgusted me as being an outspoken woman. Oh, she charged him with sexism, Drew. That's why he didn't like her, is because she was outspoken.
Yeah.
Was it because she was a filthy murderer or anything? Determined defendant and proactive client. These are all the reasons why he didn't like her. Hoping the next time you put on your listening ears, you do not unfairly oppress the next as you have so blatantly done me. You will never admit your many judicial errors. Again, so she knows that a judicial error is what she needs to reverse her case on an appeal. What that means is that the judge basically made a bad judgment call when there was an objection or when it was time to rule on a matter of evidence coming in or testimony coming in or some procedural thing. It's not an error, isn't the judge just deciding that she happens to be guilty and deserves to go to prison the rest of her life. Those are things where you weigh out the case, you weigh out the evidence, the jury tells you that she is guilty, and then you decide the sentence based off of guidelines, the law, experience, her level of remorse, which has always been non-existent. But she just believes that because he didn't choose her side, that this is a reversible error. She doesn't really understand what's going on here. Anyway, you will never admit your many judicial errors. You will never, nor will the prosecutors theirs, and I will never admit to what you have wrongfully accused me and judged me as. Now, I have to remind you that she did get on the stand and said, I'm sorry for what I did to George. So, and in the interrogation, she said, I didn't intentionally not do it. So
I did not intentionally do that.
She's sort of admitted to it, multiple times. So what do you say about that? I am not a murderer. I am a survivor. Sarah Boone. Now, I don't know why she thought those were the two options, that the jury would come back either murderer or survivor. It was never going to be those two things. So that was her letter excoriating the judge, letting him know that she's going to have her appeal and that he's not going to get his way, and that he was sexist and mean because she was an outspoken woman and all this.
Let me summarize Judge Kraynic's thoughts. If you can just give me the whole canvas for a second.
Yo, yeah, by all means, go ahead. Is that the look on his face the entire time she's talking? Oh, I can't hear it, Drew.
Oh.
What is he saying?
Miss Boone, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to that. I award you no points, and may have God have mercy on your soul, and you will be going to prison for the rest of your life.
We'll put it in post. The other thing that would be good right now is the classic Willy Wonka. You lose. You get nothing. Good day, sir.
I said good day.
I said good day. So let's go back. You remember when Sarah's on the stand and she says this is the tip of the tip of the tip. We're going to go through and I'm going to tell you everything that her lawyer, James Owens, forbade her from saying on the stand. And I don't know how if she had said all these things, I don't know how she would have walked out of there alive, to be honest with you. Not from any kind of justified outrage, but just for pissing people off. She wanted to use this as she even mentions it at one point in the speech you're about to hear as her personal pulpit. She wants to get up there and explain. And she has this all in her own personal suitcase at this point. She gets to say whatever she wants. And here's what she would have said. So these are what was excerpted from that. Black robe disease. Arrogance in a judge, a slang term for a judge who flaunts judicial power and dominates proceedings at the expense of the dispensation of justice. I was pretty sure that the judge really is in charge of what's going on in the courtroom, so yes, I'm not sure.
Kind of his job.
He dominates proceedings. That's what he's supposed to do.
Yes, that's his main function.
He's supposed to just, okay. So impartiality is the first duty of a judge. Before he gives an opinion or sits in judgment in a cause, he ought to be certain and absolute that he has no bias for or against either of the parties. If he has any interest, even something in the slightest, in the cause, he is disqualified from sitting as judge, and whom aware of such interest ought to be lawfully and justly refused to sit on a case. The delicacy which characterizes the judge in this country generally forbids their sitting in such a cause. So she was going to get up there while this man is about to pronounce sentence and say, if a judge has an interest in a case, he ought not sit on it.
Yeah, like quicker than the pizza jury. I think it was just kind of
yeah. When he comes out, he goes like, "Okay, are we all done? There's nothing else to be said. I sentence you to prison. Take her away." Like
for life.
And like literally the door swinging to his chambers before she's gone. So she continues to go on and basically throw herself on the mercy of the court. This is when she's supposed to be begging. She's supposed to be saying, "Please, judge, I learned my lesson. This has all been so horrible. I just want a second chance." The judge must not only be impartial, but must also follow and properly enforce the law, not abuse. He's bound to declare what law is and not make it. Be not an arbitrator, but an interpreter of the law. It is their duty to be patient in the investigation of the case, understand circumstances and difficulties by all parties, careful in considering parts of the case in whole and decent in judgment. This comes from the Bouvier Law Dictionary, the 2012 edition. She's literally going to read from the dictionary, Drew.
She, by the way, another comment we're bombarded with over on the other channel on Sarah Suitcase is that it is completely plagiarized. Like that first, I think she's reading it right, but she also plagiarized it. Like she made it her own. Like she made it people believe that she's sitting in a prison cell with a quill.
Yeah, like all that talk about Kitsunagari or whatever it was.
Yeah. That was from like a verifiably, like word for word verbatim.
It was printed out from Wikipedia. Yeah.
Right.
So she goes on, but at the risk of practicing judicial centrism, a word that I have coined in this presentation. Sarah, this is not a presentation. Others have called it black robe disease. Whether he was correct or not in my behavior, it is widely accepted that judicial behavior affects that jury. Quote, that's a quote from Murray Richtel, the Simpson trial in 1996. Maybe not a favorable comparison to draw to yourself.
It's bad.
Because everyone's just high-fiving themselves that you got guilty when OJ got off there.
Right.
And then there is the worst of judicial ailments, the black robe disease, which is otherwise known as arrogance. This is from Lynn Toller, A Practical Guide to Becoming an Emotional Genius, 2007. I'm kind of surprised that Sarah didn't write that book herself, A Practical Guide to Becoming an Emotional Genius, because she views herself as that. Just wait for the Sarah Boone book. She's dogging the judge right now, but this is about to get spicier, so hang on. Trial judges are affirmatively charged with securing a fair trial and must intervene something to that end when necessary. Brown versus Waltner, and she cites it. That duty encompasses not only avoidance of error before it occurs, but the fair correction of error that may have occurred earlier in a proceeding. Carlisle v. United States. So she's like she's going to get on the stand and like quote case law to the judge about what a bad judge he's been. Not smart. In that instant case, the trial judge did not analyze the evidence. He added to it, dealing with a mere mannerism of the accused and giving his testimony. The judge put his own experience with all the weight that could be attached to it in the scale against the accused. Aversia v. United States. How did Kraynic do that in this case? He did not say anything to the juries about what a piece of shit she is. Right. Judge Kraynic didn't add anything about his experience or his opinion to any of this. So she quotes Aversia v. United States, and it's just her picking on him, saying he's a bad judge. This doesn't apply to the judge. He didn't do this at all, Drew.
Yeah, it's because she got a guilty verdict. But you know what I mean? Like if this were not guilty, she wouldn't have written a letter saying all of this, right? And she would not have written a thank you note either, right?
Yeah, right. So here's where she goes into the Japanese ceramic gold shit, where she talks about her flaws make her a more perfect person. She blames George, the Torres family, social media corrections, scoundrel detectives, infamy. She blames infamy. She blames defamation, ongoing constitutional stuff. She blames for forgiveness. She wants forgiveness from sorrow, as though she felt any sorrow herself. She says that withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds greater grief. She just wants everyone to move forward. She blames George for alcoholism, all the stuff that you heard. This is what that you got to hear on the stand. But now here she goes on to nail her prior attorneys on the stand. She was literally going to go up there and blame the attorneys who didn't even participate in the trial in front of this jury. She was going to talk about these attorneys. They are not relevant at all, because although they were all part of her case coming forward to today at her sentencing, they didn't participate in the actual jury trial. They had nothing to do with it. My gold also runs deep for my prior attorneys. Mauricio Padilla, she fucking names him, who sold me the world with empty promises, then abandoned his responsibilities as my attorney after taking 2.5 years of my life, when finally realizing he was over his head, all while hoarding JAC dollars. I believe that's some sort of fund to pay attorneys for indigent defendants.
It doesn't. I can't see it. So it does say JAC. It's not JQC.
It might be. She might also be getting it wrong. I did the best I
Okay.
could to kind of read her scratch, but what you need to know when she mentions JAC or whatever it is that it's some sort of fund that she feels has been defrauded by their bad lawyering. Anyway, he was hoarding these dollars to fund his staycations. Isn't the whole point of a staycation that you don't spend any money, Drew?
It's actually the Justice Administration Commission that decides if you get paid or not.
There you go.
JAC.
There you go. So that's what she's mad about. That's what she feels has been defrauded. So she said that he was stealing that money to hoard for his staycations with his family when in town from Miami. You mean when he was coming from out of town, when he had to fly to visit you and have his paralegals do all kinds of clerk of court stuff on your behalf, all at a very high rate, probably, and still not that much compared to what he would be making on a private case. She just thinks the lawyer should work for free.
Could you imagine how many times collectively all the first 8 attorneys told her that's never going to work. Just stay focused for a minute. Like, let me get you through this. Like, it's you want to bring that in, but when you bring that in, that's going to open the door for X, Y, and Z. So we're not going to bring that up. Like, don't bring that up.
Yeah. She couldn't play a chess game because there's a counter move, right? She would swing out a pawn and she would lose a queen in so doing, but she couldn't think at that level. She just always thought the best thing was to get in front of a jury and explain herself, which is, we know, is the worst thing, because then you're subject to cross-examination. And someone like Sarah, who's just going to get up there and blab and say anything, she's going to open the door for her character, her prior conduct, anything. Yeah. She's going to be able to, because she's such an idiot, she'll be able to open the door for the prosecution to just be able to basically have so much leverage to talk about anything. And that I'm sure that her being silenced or kept out of the process was strictly for her benefit, but she doesn't believe in the judges. In the lawyers, she only believes in herself. Anyway, for having resources ready and available, not allowing me, the client, to ever utilize, which would have greatly progressed my case and perhaps concluded, only for him to decide water parks, fine dining, and choice hotels were more important and on the JAC's dime. How does she know that he went to fine dining on their dime? And not only that, but if he's getting paid for his work, can't he spend his money on whatever he wants?
Yeah, even if it's a staycation.
How dare he spend his income on his life? What a bastard. I forgive Frank J. Bankowitz for committing perjury to the judge on court record about my attempts to be a proactive defendant and client, inquiring about my discovery and trying to communicate with no answer or correspondence in any manner for 1 full year and 2 months before I was able to finally meet with him in the courtroom, only to receive his motion to withdraw. Frank J. Bankowitz is forgiven for his greed in taking $15,000.
I said good day. I'm pretty sure Frank Bankowitz was the guy that was like, she called me a dolt.
That's the guy, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was him.
He's forgiven for his greed from taking $15,000 from the JAC and who honorably aid indigent defendants as myself. I like how she'll just without any shame says she's indigent. You know, she should be a little bit ashamed that indigent is just a nice word for being broke as a joke. Yeah. You know, she puts, indigent, you know, we're the victims, we're the righteous people. The JAC is out there looking up for us, and he's robbing them blind and not doing anything. For robbing the justice system by lying and avoiding clients, taking the money, and the JAC. Sarah, if I was your lawyer, I would avoid you too. Winston E. Hobson receives my forgiveness. And, you know, if this had been right on the set, he's got to just be shaking his head, because these things make them look bad. To say that they commit perjury and stole money, I mean, good Lord, this is ridiculous. This is beyond the pale. And of course, James Owens could not let her read this. The canons of ethics, the bar, the officer of the court, all of that stuff would prevent him from allowing her to say
Now,
it.
Sarah, I'm not going to allow you to get on the stand and talk about the Sarah Boone Forgiveness Hall of Fame. You know,
yeah, and that's exactly what's happening. I bet he took her notes and Xeroxed them and trimmed out the portions, and then just gave back the notes. And then she gets on the stand. She's like, well, fuck, there's supposed to be more stuff here. Now I can't remember it.
She's like, yeah, I can't wait for the docudrama, you know, because like when he hands that to her and she looks at it and she just a little tear rolls down her cheek and she's like, This is just the tip of the tip of the tip.
I was supposed to say more. She says at the beginning, well, I was going to say more, but for some reason there's 18 pages that are missing.
I forgive him for stifling all my unethical statements.
Winston E. Hobson receives my forgiveness for who also unethically perjured himself to the judge and on court record about all the progress and attorney work he did in my case for the 2 months he was my court-appointed attorney. For his allegations of my supposed unethical requests, which meant asking about my discovery and trying to have him file a motion for my lawful inclusion to my pre-trial conference, cited under FRCP Discovery Rule 3.22001. She just loves that. She likes feeling lawyerly, dropping the little citation. I wanted to be included in my case and no progress from being excluded by Bankowitz and Padilla over 3 years prior. Forgiveness also in telling me he would return in a week with my discovery, only to receive his motion to withdraw in the meantime. He cut and run in the middle of the night. Good for you, Winston. In the meantime, still not receiving my discovery and filing my own motion, enabling me to go to all my hearings, including my pretrials. I want to go to everything. Continued forgiveness in his greed and selfish intentions also for robbing the JAC. Again, you cannot say that on the stand. And indigent defendants of $15,000 or more for nothing, justifying any of the work he really did do.
Yeah. By the way, the JAC is the administrative body, meaning they make the decision of how much is going to get paid out. Like they'll write, these attorneys will write an order. In fact, I think we covered it at one point, but they'll write an order saying like, look, I want to go above what the minimum is here because of this, and this, and this. And the JAC has to review it and approve it. And then there's like a chief judge that will order it. Like, yeah, or it's disapproved or it's approved or whatever. So like when she's saying that they were being robbed, she's basically saying that the panel of judges that reviews that is not competent enough to see through it.
She's making huge allegations, and I don't think she understands the legal or ethical ramifications of her getting up there and saying that. I'm not sure that they would necessarily have a huge impact because no one takes Sarah seriously. But she is seriously, it's defamation. She's possibly damaging people's careers through negative talk up there on the stand, and it's all on the record. And it's just very bad for her to be saying this. And it's also not helping her look any better. Like, this does not make you want to forgive her at all. You know what I mean? This is her plea for mercy. Finally, with all my gold received from this one, I forgive Patricia A. Cashman for her mean, snotty, egotistical attitude, not listening or caring that I finally received my discovery. I keep asking her for which she withheld from me, citing her ridiculous, untrue reasons was because I saw with my first attorney 4 years prior, and while she being my present at that time attorney, I saw not one page of or any digital evidence of my discovery she prohibited me from seeing. These lawyers are told by the court they have to represent her. There is nothing that says in the canon of ethics or professionalism that you have to be nice to your client. You can be snotty to them. I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TV, but is there any reason, Drew, that she should not be begging for the kind attention of Patricia Cashman and for her forgiveness instead of, potentially getting up to the stand and calling her a snotty, mean person? This is a person doing you a favor.
Yeah, we said it at the time. If you're defending me for zipping my spouse in a suitcase and then blindly drunk passing out,
recording it,
and me recording it, calling you a fucking idiot. I don't, or that's my name, don't wear it out. I don't want a nice, I want the Wicked Witch of the East. You know what I mean? Like, I want somebody very, very angry and confrontational.
She didn't like that. She didn't like that Cashman stood up to her. She wants people to bow down to her and admire her. That's what she always wants from everyone.
I gotta wonder too, like if, these attorneys, like I had a good friend that was an attorney. He's a judge now. And he told us in front of an academy class, we were both teaching one day. And he said, look, I think as a defense attorney, I've had I've been to trial close to 1,000 times. I've had 2 people that were actually innocent. The rest were, I was just trying to mitigate their case, trying to prove that they were not guilty.
Keep it fair.
To keep it fair. But he's like, I've only had 2 that were innocent. Like completely wrongfully charged. And so like these attorneys will advocate for, like, they'll jump on your case and give you like their heart and soul, even though they know that you're guilty, and do their best to like mitigate your circumstances. That's what their job is, like, just to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And obviously she was a little ungrateful, or she was not happy with the pace, or she felt that she should have been the solo client for anybody that's going to represent her or whatever. But these attorneys, like, to get them to, it's not hard to get them to rigorously, like, they'll take on the challenge. In other words, like,
that's their job.
It's kind of their job, but I think that they are up for a good challenge. But if she's pissed them off to that point where they're just like, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to subject myself.
I was given this case, and it's like, you fucked us from the beginning, recording this. You recorded you murdering someone, and then you talked to the cops without calling me.
Like, we would have had
them that you not intentionally did this. Well, by the time I got here, the house was burned down. What else could I do but sign the paperwork? You know what I mean?
It's the old, in the plea, the whole plea deal. Like, they offered her whatever, 13 years or whatever. She probably would have been out
James
by
Owen
the end.
got a plea for her in which she could have gotten out in like 8 years.
Yeah.
A dope deal is what he got for it.
Yeah,
She said no.
She was like, no, I'm innocent.
Yeah. Patricia Cashman is also forgiven for admitting I had a right to bond. So you have a right to a bond under the Constitution, but a judge decides whether or not you receive that. And a bond isn't always reasonable. If you're a flight risk, if you've committed a heinous enough crime, if it's in the interest of the public safety,
yeah.
In a world full of suitcases, should we let a Sarah Boone out there?
Right. There's an American Tourister outlet, like, not more than 20 minutes from there.
Well, with Disney World, there's a lot of suitcases in Florida, perhaps more than anywhere else. I would say she's a danger to the public.
Yeah.
So the lawyer told her, like, you have a right to bond constitutionally, but it wasn't up to her lawyer to procure that bond for her. The lawyer can go and say, okay, I'll ask, for bond, but the judge will just hear out what the state has to say. The state's going to say, like, yeah, her charges are kind of too severe. We're worried she'll get on a plane to Mexico or Cuba or something, and we're never going to see her again. And they'll be like, yeah, it's in the interest of the state that she said tight. So you're not necessarily, you don't have that right to bond. Don't have the right to just be let out of jail.
John, we could be onto something here when you think about it, because she's like demanding to see the evidence, right? So she's essentially saying, I kind of need that suitcase if you guys are done with it.
If you're done with it.
Right? Like, I need that suitcase. And
I
they're
need
like,
to pack my bags. Yeah.
They're like, wait a minute. What do you need the suitcase for?
Well, it's my suitcase,
And she's like, well, just get me a bond and we'll talk about it. But at any rate, and then they're like, whoa. What do you mean get you a bond? And why are you so interested in this suitcase, Sarah?
Yeah,
I think we're onto something.
A dead giveaway there. Put in the song. So I could actually utilize one of my rights as opposed to having them always violated as prior and still ongoing. Then her deterrence from all of my opportunities to do so. For all her lies, condescension, gross, unnecessary arguments, and anger that I asked any questions and wanted to understand, for her doing nothing other than to give me an even harder time and request transcripts. Sarah, do you understand that talking to you and dealing with you is a pain in the ass, and that nobody wants to be doing it?
Right.
Nobody. The judge doesn't want to deal with you. The jury doesn't want to deal with you. You are a pain. You committed a terrible crime. We are all here having to clean up your mess, Sarah. We don't like you. We don't respect you. We'll treat you fairly because that's what the law says, but none of us have to like you. And I think that's what she could never understand. She always wanted some sweetheart. Anyway, then brazenly lie for over $16,000 for doing so. Also from the precious resources provided from the JAC. I forgive Patricia A. Cashman for being a liar and a bully. This is what she was going to say while throwing herself on the mercy of the court. She was going to call her old lawyer a liar and a bully. Forgiveness for all those who did not include me to receive $15,000 share that I worried for when Judge Kraynic forced me to be my own attorney. So she's mad that she didn't get any money when she was her own attorney. To represent myself as pro se. I actually and finally got my own discovery almost 5 years later, filed motions all prior. Should have done making them the most expensive motions ever at over $46,000 between the three prior attorneys. Frank J. Bankowitz, Walter E. Hobson, Patricia A. Cashman. Would they have done so when supposedly representing me? The motion should have been priceless for the proper use of the JAC funds towards ethics, professionalism, honesty, and freedom. I honorably utilized my JAC resources and mentorship as a proactive indigent defendant, avidly defending myself against the liars, thieves, and real villains in my criminal case. Who is the real criminal? She zipped up her boyfriend in a suitcase, and she's saying that the lawyers who took money to represent her are the real criminals.
You guys are the criminals.
The JAC can hopefully include their forgiveness for them also. Judge Wooten and Kraynic, I have the great forgiveness for you also in not protecting me and listening to my valid request for judicial intervention so I could properly and fairly defend myself against my charges. Instead, I had to defend myself against the attorneys, all appointed by the judge in this court, against their lies and exaggerations, reasons unjustifiable why they were really creeping away from the battlefield and abandoning their professional duty as my attorney. Judge Kraynic, I forgive you for not giving me any opportunity to stand at your pulpit, to stand at all, to explain the real truthful side of the story. I believe if the justice system, including yourself, would and should have done any vital homework on the already almost see-through attorneys from being spread so thin, and simply sending an email to care about their present workload, number of clients, trial schedules already in place before throwing another inmate defendant, unknowing client into their heaping unimportant pile of warm bodies, more taxpayer dollars could be conserved. I'm glad she cares about the taxpayers. That's sweet. Thank you. I'm sure you appreciate that, Drew.
Yes.
Unless time consumed and wasted for everyone, regardless of what part they play in the supposed system of justice. Ooh, that's a punch below the belt. You're addressing the judge. For my forgiveness is deepened for taking even greater time of mine away, years, by not caring to ask me anything about anything, to understand so you could justly render your life-defining judgments and withhold any more bias and prejudice. We took years away from your life, Sarah. Can you believe that she says that? You took years away from my life. You took all of the remaining years away from George. You know, you've been in prison now 5 years. He's been in the prison of death 5 years, and he's not getting out either. And he didn't even kill anybody.
5 years in a couple in like 12 hours.
5 years
when
and
you
2
think
months.
about it.
Yes, and she always like puts on, extra time there. Foremost, Judge Kraynic, I forgive you for kicking me when I was down and choking the life out of my constitutional amendments. This is her throwing herself on the mercy of the court. Most profoundly, my right to counsel as a result of my wholehearted use of my first right to free speech and being my own advocate, since no one else would be, and received a paycheck for. And all of my free speech, experience-driven letters only for remedy, and any collaboration, inclusion, receiving my discovery as an inmate, defendant, and client, not removal of any attorneys to cause more delays or any reason or excuse you may try to force on me in having already inappropriately accused me of doing prior to your heavily insinuated strategies of mine, and try and deflect the glaring red flags, disappointments, and true crime in and of the justice system. I'm sorry, but there were no commas. There were no periods. There was no semicolons. I couldn't tell what the hell she was talking about. She's just listing things that make her mad. To this day and all forward, I do not forfeit my rights, any of them, ever, especially my right to be bold, outspoken, and my right to my real-life experiences with the legal and justice systems. You weren't there, Judge Kraynic, in anything. You ever seen those memes, Drew, where it's just like, with all due respect, Your Honor, you weren't there. You weren't there, Judge Kraynic, in anything. No meetings, no phone calls, no visits, and still took my rights and oppressed harder. Yeah, the judge didn't visit her at the jail. What a jerk. I must now defend myself against you, praying you do not care too late as all the others. Believe me, Sarah, none of us care at this point. And retaliate further against me and a still proud citizen of the United States of my America. And freely, excitedly using my God-given rights to still try and defend myself, to stand all the way up. For you remove my freedom altogether by allowing and approving my stab wound, bloody body parts, grapes, that may be a typo, bumps, bruises, and all the rest of my beatings I endured. Do you see that? She just blamed the judge for all the harm that she's alleged to have suffered at the hands of George Torres. She says that he is, by taking away her freedom, he's endorsing and is a collaborator after the fact to all the physical battery that she had to endure. Can you believe the audacity of that, Drew?
The audacity.
I hope you
dare
can.
You.
I hope you can finally see and understand just how some of the pain and extreme difficulties, obstacles, and unfairness, especially in my due process, you have added in my criminal case and my life as an inmate, criminal and client. All is forgiven. Strap in, guys. We're almost there. For detectives Koepsel and Lowen, I forgive you. Their demonization, lies, blacklisting. Drew, have you ever blacklisted someone that you interrogated?
No.
I don't get that word.
No, I don't
Coercion.
get it either. I mean, she's already called them scoundrels.
I know that was the worst one so far. Coercion, law breaking, solicitation of my case before I even arrive at the corrections department to be booked and fingerprinted. She's mad that they were already investigating the case before they talked to her. They should not have been doing that, Drew. This can be seen in any this can be seen in any unbeknownst interrogation video where I ask what they are doing, what all the pinging was during their texting swarm. Well, I naively sit there waiting to be arrested, which they know would happen the day before. How dare they? They didn't sit down and ask her what happened and then decide what happened based off of talking to her. They had the audacity to look at evidence and bring her in and try to get her to incriminate herself. Drew, did you do this before?
No.
How dare you? I bet you did do it. I bet you looked at evidence and decided someone was guilty of a crime and then brought them in and then tried to also get them to incriminate themselves, didn't you?
We try to keep it in the dark, and we try to keep it a surprise, especially if they wrote letters to see the evidence before we did as cops.
Unbelievable. Well, you got to remember, this is like the next day, too, that she's being brought in. So she's mad that this was an unbeknownst interrogation. She didn't know what was going on. She calls it an unbeknownst interrogation video. She was mad that they were texting each other back and forth, like she should have been shown those text messages, which they knew would happen the day before. For Koepsel, for bald-faced lying on the stand of the judge in court on record, she didn't tell me to come to the station to pick up my phone. So her beef with this detective is that the reason for her being at the department was not true. I guess that's what you call fruit of the poisonous tree, right? They lured her down there under false pretenses, and so every single thing that she said against her own interest while waiving her right to an attorney, it's all fruit of the poisonous tree, because she thought that she was there to collect a phone. Why else would I go? I don't even know about the surprise interrogation. I wasn't even told that I was about to be interrogated.
It's her, and by the way, it's her ego that, like, yeah, you have the right to consult with an attorney before any question. I mean, like, she's not going to do that because she thinks she can bamboozle. She doesn't need an attorney for that. She could just bamboozle.
No, she thought that she could convince them, or she legitimately was so snowed with the idea that she was a victim too of the horrible accidental murder, this catastrophe of George, that they were going to empathize with her, give her phone back. I'm like, oh, we watched the video, Sarah. It's truly horrible, so awful. She must have gone down there and thought that's what it was going to be, because she was very confused, very defensive, and very hostile. I remember at one point, this also got cut from the video that we showed tonight, but she says, like, are you guys trying to make this worse? Like, like she's like, you trying to make this worse for me? Like, she does not understand the role of police to investigate crime. I forgive them also lying now. Lying how the news showed up to record my walk of shame, handcuffed and confused on camera. I forgive them for trying to make me lose from the beginning. How dare they, Drew? They tried to make her lose from the beginning by starting the unquenchable wildfire of sensationalism and distortion, ignorant hate, defamation, and greed by unlawfully broadcasting who they wanted the world to think I was by their schemes. Learn lessons, fraudulent stratagems from the school of manipulation and taking advantage. How much did they make off of me? Probably just a regular salary, maybe some overtime.
I guarantee they lost money.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, the department did. They didn't earn, the department doesn't earn money by spending extra time prosecuting this case.
Right.
It's not a for-profit enterprise, Sarah. How much did they make off of me and still are calling it in, then removing the curtain to expose their personally twisted murdering monster. So basically the cops are the ones who made you into Frankenstein's monster. Also, my forgiveness and greater gold comes from wondering why nothing viable in my defense was taken from my townhome, aka the crime scene, to aid in my truth, such as the butcher knife, the 5-pronged garden claw, or the hammer under the table together outside where George had easy access to it. So the cops didn't, take photos of what could have been weapons had George escaped from the suitcase. Right. So they're not at all relevant to what happened. And since the detectives are not there to impartially say, well, what's been happening to Sarah? What's been happening to George? They're just like, some fucking dude died in a suitcase. What the hell happened? So she claims that George had easy access to these weapons, including the butcher knife and the hammer. If I tried to leave or call for help while being held against my will during his rageful binges, or my bloody pillowcase stained from me being backhanded because I hid the magnum-sized bottle of vodka from him. Why weren't any crime scene photos taken of holes patched in walls and doors, some doors missing knobs and all locks George removed, cracked windows, broken furniture, obvious unnatural destruction in my townhome? How and why were all these missed, uncared about, and not questioned so that I could explain some of my terror? Drew, do you typically gather evidence for the defendant?
No, I mean, it's not like
Even if you would take pictures of those things, they wouldn't have been admitted into evidence because they're not relevant to what she did.
I mean, if it's exculpatory, but like nobody has pointed out that well, actually, that's why you take overall photos of the scene, and you would hope that her, piece of shit defense attorneys would say, like, look at all the patches in the wall, look at the doors, the doorknobs removed, but
but that's not, when you go into a crime scene and you see patched up holes in the walls, you're not going to think that that's relevant to a dead guy in a suitcase. A detective, a police officer is not going to see, oh wow, they have a history of domestic violence, which they probably already knew because they'd been to that house plenty of times. The cops already know this. When they go to a DV call, they know that they've dealt with these people and arrested these people before. And also, Drew, I'm sure you could testify as a police officer, you've got into a lot of shithole houses. People live in dilapidated houses. They live in trash and garbage, and you're pretty nonplussed to it. And I think the human race would probably be surprised by how many people actually do live that way. But the defense, if they wanted to make a case that this was battered spouse syndrome, an affirmative defense. So what they're doing is when they go to the affirmative defense of saying this is battered spouse, they're going to say, okay, she did it, but here's why. So now is when the defense sends their investigators. Here's when the defense goes out to the townhome and takes pictures of the holes in the wall and gathers evidence for the defense. So she's blaming detectives for not doing what should have been the job of her attorney or her investigator. And she's, she didn't get to say this, but this is her getting up on the stand and saying the detectives are dirty for not gathering evidence that would exonerate her.
Right.
So she says, it makes no difference. All is forgiven. Are you guys getting that this is a little sarcastic? Prosecutors, Mr. J and Mr. Cacciatore, my forgiveness is also extended for your inappropriate attributed narratives, for having to go through years of my pictures, videos, texts, the video of me killing the guy, to erroneously place together your deceitful, damning version of what really happened and who I am. After so much availability and for so long, you were finally able to make the circle fit into a square. I forgive your antics. I forgive your theatricals, your ludicrous comments to make sure the world got their money's worth while watching with ignorant pitchforks and burning torches, hoping for the best, which was my worst. Instead of dropping the mic, Mr. J, you dropped the bat. For the yelling, finger pointing, and intense undermining to force your theoreticals and fantastics to the jury. By using imaginary space adventures and fictional characters to blind and bedazzle them This is his mention of Star Wars in his closing statements, which I didn't really like either. This is where she kind of definitely gets him, though. And fictional characters to blind and bedazzle them with your far, far away truth dramatization. Far, far away from truth dramatization. In all your pieced together productions, I forgive our most for never seeing the light in people. I forgive you most for not seeing the light in people. This prosecutor is supposed to see the best in the criminal defendants. See the best in them. I forgive you first and foremost for never seeing the light in people, the human goodness, humor, and big hearts. Jay didn't see that she had a big heart. You wake up to seek out the opposite, to condemn and take lives in your own way. See, he's as much as a murderer as she was. He murdered her back, is what she's saying. See that good that doesn't exist in all of us, inherently and unforced. Even as the proud Mr. J stated, the kick dog that bites. Mr. J, who kicked the dog in the first place? In my wisdom, it's usually the best to leave the sleeping dogs lie. Then they don't bite. Was that a threat? You saying know. Like I'm getting back at you now and you shouldn't have kicked me? I will tell you that you were the one that did all this, Sarah. My gold goes out to the jury for not understanding my cracks and being blinded from the injustice and malpractice and all of the judicial and prosecutorial errors, the very apparent violations of my constitutional rights during my case and entire trial, which caused mass confusion and dysfunction. I forgive the jury truly for being wary from this confusion and dysfunction, also for being hungry and tired and wanting to go home to their families after being away in full capacity for 2 full weeks. I understand this is very sarcastic because she's been away for like 4 or 5 years. From this and their brash, misguided, corrupted decision, I was wrongfully judged a murderer instead of a survivor. For this, all is forgiven. For this, I can still survive and stand tall, having an even greater, the greatest opportunity to finally be understood in the Supreme Court for my appeal. She thinks she's going to go to the top, Drew. I didn't lose. God just wanted me to win in a different way. Freedom and forgiveness. Heart. She drew a little heart. Here's where she starts forgiving herself over and over again. You know, she did the I forgive myself, I forgive myself, I forgive myself. She talks about being a victim, not escaping the vicious cycle. She makes an ironic remark about how a man should never hit a woman without mentioning that a woman should never murder a man in a suitcase, indicating she missed the point of the entire trial. She gives herself for not avoiding the outcome. And at the end, that's where she gets the little golden globe for the moment of her. And then when she wrote on the note that she was reading from, to protect victims always, it was with big pretty letters and a nice font. Drew, that's the whole fucking thing where she blames detectives for all her dirtbag attorneys who weren't even there, the prosecutors for their closing remarks, the judges for not taking her side, for not being there for her phone calls, for not being there at her jail, the attorneys for stealing from this client defense fund. Blames everybody but herself. So that's what her attorney James Owens had stricken from her testimony. And with as long as it took me to read that, you know, kind of just trying to get through it, I can't imagine how long she would have been on the stand.
Oh my God. They probably would have like there would have been a reason for court security to surround her to protect her. You know what I'm saying? Like there would have been like an angry mob, like torches and stuff.
For as much time as she spends slandering the judge, what was he supposed to say? You know, Miss Boone, in a rare 2-for-1, you are now also guilty of defamation, which is a civil matter. It's not even my jurisdiction to do that. And I know the death penalty wasn't on the table, but I got news for you.
Yeah, I'm like, I may even lose this on appeal, but yeah, I sent you to death.
I'm gonna trash the whole thing. Right now, we're gonna go through it all again as long as I don't have to sit on it again.
I sentenced you to death on Tuesday.
He should have said I sentenced you to death, and as the whole judge, everyone just goes, "Oh my God!" And he's like, just fucking with you. I just wanted to get back at you for all the shit you put me through the last couple of years.
Come on.
Just kidding. Strike
you
that
know
from the
it's
record.
funny, Sarah.
See, the thing is, yeah, you know it's funny. I sentenced you to death by Suitcase. The thing is, he could have that all stricken from the record. You know, who do you go to if the judge is like, strike all my unprofessional and unethical comments from the record? You know what I mean? The media was there, so I guess he would have gotten in trouble for it. Folks, it's been such a long show, but we appreciate you guys hanging in to hear the full unedited truth of Sarah. It's difficult to read in her voice. She's not an intelligent writer. She is a thesaurus, but she's got donkey brains. And it's hard for me to be down at her level for 2 hours. So I appreciate everybody who hung in there. Guys, if you want to be a part of the show, you can always call in. Make sure you're using our Jen from Florida hotline. That's 848-COM-911. 848-266-6911. You can always leave us a voicemail. Drew, we've got a voicemail. It's anonymous. I don't know who it's from. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to test it out.
Roll the dice, my friend.
I'm going to roll it live on the air. Here we go.
Hey, Comm Center, Drew and John. It's Tanner from Canada calling.
Oh, hi.
It is 10 minutes after 1 a.m. on a night shift. So I was just listening to the Linda Sturmer podcast, the audio version, in my car while I'm driving around here. I think I got most of it. I think I had to, I stopped the car in the middle of the podcast, so you may be on my body cam talking at some point. But anyway, that was a really interesting one. The screaming, I can't believe that that's a common thing that gets, shot into call takers' ears. It's just hearing the sheer panic and everything of the ladies and that high-pitched squealing like in your ears. It's got to really wear and tear on the call takers' ears, and they're it just really got me, my blood pumping hearing that, because it was such a awful sound to hear. I can only imagine how many times that happens in a shift. And another thing is that I know this is an American show, and as a Canadian in the law system, I understand that the prosecutor attacked her character by saying that something was malicious. I forget what it was. But in Canada, we can't go after your character unless, of course, the defense opens that. So I don't know if I missed it where they opened up that door where her character was brought up. So I find that interesting. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Talk to you later.
Hey, that was a great take. I don't think that it was a character assassination, though. I think the issue that got her a new trial was that she said she lied when they didn't provide not evidence, but they didn't provide any testimony to back up the fact that she lied. And in the crux of the lie was about, she had 2 cell phones. She could have called 911 on either one of those. So in the closing argument, she talked about how she lied. The other thing was a matter of the defense not hiring their own arson expert, which is, that's what went into the federal judge's decision to give her a new trial. But I don't know that it was the assassination of her character so much as not providing proof that it occurred. 1, and 2, if you've watched any parts of this new trial, which I have, I haven't caught up on it. I'm like a day or 2 behind it. You'll see that this prosecutor is very careful to make sure that the witnesses on the stand, specifically her sons, talk about, did she have a second cell phone? Did you ever see her use the second cell phone? And in fact, one of the sons was ordered by Linda to hide the bill from, what's his name? The victim, is it Matthew Sturmer? From Mr. Sturmer. Todd, I'm sorry. I didn't quite hear that. So that's a great take. That's man, you were definitely listening on that one. But I don't think it was a matter of an assassination character as much as it was like not providing proof that she lied. So when yeah, I mean, essentially it boils down to, yeah, I guess you're right. Like the higher court found that you called her a liar, and that swayed the jury when you provided no backing for your argument that she was a liar, which you could have done. Like, it doesn't matter if you could have done it, the fact of the matter is you didn't.
Yeah.
So, John, like, I have to say, this case with Sarah Boone was a case where she called 911 herself and got the medical, got everything, got the ball rolling. Then she just, drifted into Sarah land. Linda Sturmer's case is not that far off. And I would love for you all to swing over and watch that if you haven't yet, because it's very similar in the sense that she didn't make the 911 call, and she had 2 cell phones to do that with. She chose to run outside of the house while her husband was burning, and while he was at the back of the car. And John, we swore we weren't going to compare him to Michael Jackson in the Pepsi commercial. We we do believe that, in a stop, drop, and roll world that we're all taught from kindergarten on, that she would have noticed when there's a guy on fire, like every stunt man.
Can you imagine if she had called and said, my husband just burned to death, but he was still alive, and then she had to like run him over, and then it's like, how did he get outside, Linda? That's the thing about Sarah is, she was locked into a story from get-go. Whereas if this was a failed attempt at murder that had to then had a second attempt with the van, which already doesn't match up. Can you imagine if there was 911 testimony that occurred between those 2 events? I think this is a very poor turn of phrase, but I think her goose would have been cooked, Drew.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, guys. I don't have anything else, Drew. So thanks so much, guys, for this extra long episode. We want to thank everybody who dropped in tonight. If you're new to the Comm Center, become members. We would appreciate it. You get lots of bonus content. We have bonus content usually on Monday and an extra live show on Thursday night. Make sure you're looking us up on social media. Also, the Sarah Suitcase YouTube channel. Go over there, become a subscriber. You can binge watch everything. You can share the channel with a friend. You can share the zaniest and, frankly, our favorite true crime case of all time. With lots of great takes, in-depth detail, videos from all these parts tonight that we just glazed over. There's lots of details in there for you. So go over to the Sarah Suitcase YouTube channel. Look us up on your favorite social media as well. Drew, we will catch you back here next week, buddy. Thanks for this great case breakdown. Sorry it was a little long. I know you got to wake up in the morning to go mow your grass. But all right, everybody, make sure you go over. Check this out right now. The Linda Sturmer video from last week. The Linda Sturmer video case. That case is heating up. So make sure you go over and check it out right now. Guys, thanks for watching the Comm Center. We appreciate you.
It's fire content, John.